The sound of her heels clicked loudly against the marble floor, a rhythm that seemed to echo her growing panic. Joy's heart pounded in her chest as she stood at the altar, surrounded by a sea of faces, familiar and unfamiliar eyes fixed on her. The air was thick, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She had never felt more out of place in her life. Jun-suk, her soon-to-be husband, stood across from her, a tall figure in his immaculate tuxedo, looking every bit the part of the perfect man, handsome, successful, poised. But there was something about his eyes today, something cold. She had never noticed it before, not in the way she did now. She tried to focus, tried to calm her nerves, but every time she looked at him, a pit formed in her stomach. The priest spoke, words meant to bind them together forever, but Joy barely heard them. Her mind wandered back to their relationship, the years of carefully curated smiles and polite conversations. The love she thought they shared felt hollow now, as though it had been built on a fragile facade that was about to collapse. Then, without warning, Jun-suk's voice cut through the air, sharper than any knife. "I can't do this," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Joy's breath caught in her throat. Her mind refused to process what he said, but the words still hit her like a slap to the face. "Joy, you're just too dark. I can't marry you. Not like this." Before I continue, click like on this video, hit the subscribe button, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Your support helps this channel grow and keeps stories like this coming to you. Now, let us continue. The words hung in the air, as if the world itself had paused. The guests were silent, their gazes shifting between the two of them, trying to make sense of the situation. But Joy felt like she was drowning. Too dark. Was this really happening? She had always known that people looked at her differently. She had grown up in a world that praised fair skin, where beauty was determined by how closely someone could match the standards set by society, but to hear it from Jun-suk, the man she thought she would spend her life with, was devastating. Joy felt the blood drain from her face. Her knees weakened, but she stood firm, fighting the overwhelming wave of emotion threatening to break her. "What are you talking about?" she managed to whisper, her voice trembling with disbelief. Jun-suk's eyes were hard, devoid of the warmth she had once seen in them. He took a deep breath, as if bracing himself for what he was about to say next. "I wanted to love you. I really did. But I can't. Not when you don't fit the image. Not when your skin is so dark." The words were venomous, searing into her soul, leaving behind nothing but emptiness. Joy's chest constricted, and before she could stop herself, tears welled up in her eyes. She had spent so many years trying to prove herself, trying to convince herself that she was worthy of love, that she was enough, but now, here she stood, humiliated, her heart shattered into pieces by the man who had promised to stand by her side. As the tears began to fall, Joy couldn't bear to stay any longer. The world felt like it was closing in around her, the stares of the guests burning into her skin. She turned on her heel, running out of the church, the sound of her heels now a frantic, desperate clatter against the floor. She had to escape. She had to get away from the suffocating pain that was consuming her. She didn't know where she was going, but she couldn't stop running. Her breaths came in ragged gasps, her vision blurred by tears. She stumbled down the street, ignoring the looks of the people she passed, too lost in her own turmoil to care. All she could hear was the echo of Jun-suk's cruel words in her head, a constant reminder of the ugliness in the world. And then, just as she rounded a corner, she collided with someone. Hard. She gasped, her body jerking back, and she found herself face to face with a man tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in black. His eyes were dark, cold, but there was something else there, something Joy couldn't quite place. He was a stranger, yet something about him seemed familiar. Maybe it was the way he held himself, with an air of quiet confidence that seemed almost predatory. He didn't speak right away. He simply looked at her, his gaze intense, almost piercing, like he could see right through her. Joy felt a chill run down her spine, but there was no fear. Something about him made her feel seen. And for the first time in a long while, it was as if someone truly understood her pain. "Are you all right?" His voice was low, rough, but there was a softness to it that she hadn't expected. Joy opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she shook her head, the weight of everything crashing down on her in that moment. Her knees buckled, and before she knew it, she was sinking to the ground, overwhelmed by the chaos of her emotions. The man stepped forward, steadying her before she could fall. He was strong, his hands firm on her arms as he helped her to her feet. "You don't need to cry," he said, his voice oddly comforting despite the harshness of his tone. "You're perfect. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Joy looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The man smirked slightly, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "Someone who's seen enough to know when a woman like you is worth more than the people who judge her." His words were unexpected, but they struck a chord deep inside her. She had been judged her whole life, and for the first time, someone was telling her that she was enough just as she was. Her heart raced, and though she barely knew him, Joy couldn't deny the pull she felt toward this stranger. She wiped her eyes, feeling the weight of her past and present converge. The pain was still there, sharp and raw, but there was something about his presence that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of the darkness. "Who are you?" she asked again, her voice stronger this time. "Name's Kai," he replied simply, his gaze never leaving hers. "And I think it's time for you to stop running." Joy blinked in surprise. "Stop running?" Kai nodded. "You don't need to hide from anyone. Least of all him." The mention of Junsuk's name sent a flash of anger through her. She thought about how he had humiliated her in front of everyone, how he had made her feel so small. But Kai wasn't judging her. Instead, he was offering something she hadn't known she wanted: freedom. Freedom from judgment. Freedom from the suffocating standards of beauty that had defined her life. And for the first time, she considered what it might be like to step away from the chains of her past. "Come with me," Kai said, his voice low, but filled with a strange sense of certainty. "You don't belong in that world. Not anymore." Joy hesitated, the weight of everything pressing down on her. But then she looked at him again, Kai, the stranger who somehow saw her for who she really was. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe this was the escape she had been longing for. She took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and nodded. "Okay. I'll go with you." Joy felt a strange mix of emotions as she followed Kai down the dimly lit alleyway. There was fear of the unknown, of what she was about to step into, but there was something else too. A feeling she hadn't experienced in years: freedom. The weight of Junsuk's betrayal still hung heavy in her chest, but with every step she took away from the church, it seemed to lift, just a little. Kai didn't say much as they walked, his steps sure and quick, his presence commanding but strangely comforting. Joy couldn't help but feel both anxious and drawn to him. There was a mystery about him, a danger that radiated from his every movement. But despite his intimidating exterior, she felt no fear. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, like she wasn't just another face in the crowd, like she mattered. It was more than she had ever felt with Junsuk. More than she'd ever felt from anyone before. As they turned another corner, a black car pulled up beside them, the engine purring softly in the quiet street. Kai opened the door with one fluid motion and glanced at Joy. "Get in," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. Joy hesitated for a second, her pulse quickening. This was the moment. She had been given an opportunity to leave everything behind. But what was waiting on the other side? She didn't know. She only knew that staying in the life she had known, living in the shadow of Junsuk's rejection, would destroy her. "Are you coming or not?" Kai's voice broke through her thoughts, his tone still calm but insistent. Joy looked at him, her heart pounding. Without another word, she slid into the car, the door shutting softly behind her. The interior was sleek, dark, and minimalist, with the faint scent of leather and something else she couldn't place, something that spoke of a world far removed from her own. Kai slid in next to her, his presence filling the small space. "You'll be safe with me," he said, his voice low but firm. "No one will hurt you again." Joy swallowed hard, trying to push the knot in her throat away. "I don't even know who you are," she whispered. "What do you want from me?" Kai's gaze softened for a moment, and Joy noticed the intensity in his eyes had changed. It was no longer just the cold, calculating stare of someone used to power, it was something else. "I don't want anything from you," he said quietly. "I just want you to stop running from who you really are. Stop hiding in the shadows." His words hit her like a wave, crashing into the walls she had built around her heart. Stop hiding. For the first time, Joy considered that maybe she had been hiding her whole life. Not just from the world, but from herself. From the truth of who she was and what she was capable of. The car pulled to a stop in front of a sleek building, tall, imposing, a sharp contrast to the modest apartment Joy had once called home. This was Kai's world, a world she was about to step into, whether she was ready or not. Kai opened the door, gesturing for Joy to follow. She stepped out, her legs feeling strangely unsteady beneath her, but her resolve was growing stronger. With every step she took, she could feel the old life slipping away like an ill-fitting coat she had finally shed. As they entered the building, Joy's senses were immediately assaulted by the modern decor, glass walls, polished floors, dim lighting that cast long shadows. It was all so different from the world she had known. But for some reason, it felt right. They walked down a hallway, and Kai stopped in front of a door, turning the handle and ushering Joy inside. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of technology in the background. A large desk sat in the middle, with several chairs positioned around it. It looked like a meeting room, but Joy didn't know with whom she would be meeting. Sit, Kai instructed, his voice calm and steady as always. This is your new reality, Joy. You can be whoever you want here. No more hiding. She hesitated for a moment, then took a seat in one of the chairs. She looked around the room, unsure of what to say or do. This was a far cry from the life she had imagined for herself. But was it a better one? Kai moved to a nearby console, typing something into the screen, his focus absolute. He didn't speak for a while, allowing Joy to sit in silence, processing everything that had happened in the last few hours. Her life had turned upside down. One moment she was walking down the aisle, ready to start her life with Junsuk, and the next she was in the middle of a criminal world she barely understood. But something inside her stirred. Something told her that maybe this was her chance to find herself. To build a life on her own terms, free from the judgment of others. Why me? Joy finally asked, breaking the silence. Why did you choose me? Kai didn't turn around right away. Instead, he continued typing, his fingers moving swiftly across the keys. I didn't choose you, he said, his tone almost contemplative. I've been watching you for a long time. I saw the way you carried yourself. The way you fought against a world that constantly told you you weren't enough. I'm not the kind of man who looks for someone to save. But you're different. You've got the strength inside you. I just want to help you see it. Joy felt a strange weight lift from her shoulders. The world didn't make sense anymore, but for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe this was what she needed. Maybe Kai was right. Maybe she was stronger than she realized. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, interrupting her thoughts. Kai turned, his expression hardening slightly. Come in, he called out. The door opened, and a man stepped in, his demeanor calm but commanding. Joy recognized him immediately. He was one of the men she had seen with Kai earlier. His presence was unmistakable, he exuded power, but there was a quiet intensity about him that made Joy uneasy. Everything's set up, the man said, his voice low and clipped. Kai nodded. Good. Joy, this is Yoon. He'll be your contact here. If you need anything, go to him. Joy nodded, still unsure of what was happening, but somehow, she felt like she was being pulled deeper into something she couldn't escape. Are you ready? Kai asked, his voice soft but with an underlying strength that made her stomach flip. Ready for what? Joy wondered. But as she looked at Kai, she knew the answer. Ready to stop running. Ready to face whatever came next. With a final glance at the room, Joy stood up, taking a deep breath. She was about to step into a world she never imagined, but for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid. Joy followed Kai and Yoon through the building, her steps hesitant but filled with an unexpected resolve. The weight of her decision to walk away from everything she knew was heavy, but the thought of what lay ahead, of who she might become, pushed her forward. As they descended into the depths of the building, the atmosphere shifted. The walls became darker, the air more charged with the weight of secrecy and power. She couldn't deny the unease creeping up her spine, but it was different from fear. It was anticipation. The elevator dinged softly as they reached the bottom floor, and Joy's breath caught in her throat. She stepped out into a space that was far from the bright, clean environment she had been accustomed to. This was a world of shadows, where power was quietly asserted through every decision made in hushed tones. People moved briskly, exchanging quick glances, none of them making any effort to acknowledge her presence. "Welcome to my world," Kai said, his voice low but tinged with a pride that sent a shiver down Joy's spine. She tried to take it all in, but it was overwhelming. The sterile, cold atmosphere was nothing like the chaotic, judgmental world she had left behind. Still, it felt like a cage, one made of glass and steel, but a cage nonetheless. As they walked deeper into the space, a few of the men and women around them exchanged looks. Joy couldn't tell whether they were curious, judgmental, or just indifferent. But one thing was clear, they were all powerful in their own way, and they looked at her with a kind of detachment that made her feel like an outsider. The old Joy would have shrunk under their gaze, but something inside her stirred. This was her chance to prove she was more than what people had seen in her. Kai stopped in front of a large desk, motioning for Joy to sit. He moved around to the opposite side, settling into his chair with the air of someone who had been in control for a long time. Yoon stood off to the side, his eyes scanning the room, ever watchful. "You're safe here, Joy," Kai said, his voice soft but firm. "No one will ever put you down again." She met his gaze, wondering if he truly understood what it meant for someone like her to hear those words. Growing up, she had been told time and time again that she wasn't good enough by society, by her family, and by the man she had just left at the altar. But Kai's words held weight. He wasn't offering her empty comfort. He was offering her something real. "I don't know what I'm doing here," she admitted, her voice trembling despite herself. Kai's eyes softened, but the determination in them never wavered. "You're here because you've been running your whole life. You've been trying to fit into a world that never accepted you, never saw you for who you really are. But I see you, Joy. I see what you can do. And I'm going to make sure you never hide again." His words sank deep, and for the first time in a long while, Joy felt the stirrings of something powerful inside her. It wasn't just his words, but the way he looked at her, as if she were someone worth fighting for. It made her feel something she hadn't felt in years, hope. But with that hope came a question. A dangerous question. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kai didn't hesitate. "Now, you start learning. About yourself. About what you can really do in this world. This isn't a place for the weak, Joy. You need to be ready for what comes next." Joy swallowed hard. She didn't know what comes next would look like, but she knew it wouldn't be easy. But what was easy? She had spent her entire life trying to fit into a world that didn't care about her. Maybe it was time to stop pretending. "Do you want to know what I see in you?" Kai continued, his voice quieter now, like he was speaking just for her. Joy nodded slowly. Her heart was beating faster now, and the air around her seemed to thrum with energy. Kai leaned forward, his gaze never leaving hers. "You're more than what they told you you were. More than the color of your skin, more than the insecurities they tried to drill into your head. You've got a fire inside of you, Joy. You just need to learn how to use it." Joy's breath caught in her throat. She had never heard anyone speak to her like this before. Not even her mother, who had always tried to comfort her, had ever said anything that made her feel like she mattered. The words that Kai spoke weren't just flattering, they were the truth. And that truth hit her like a wave, knocking her breathless. "What do I do now?" Joy asked again, this time more steadily. She felt her old self starting to crumble away, piece by piece. In its place, something stronger was beginning to emerge. Kai smiled, a rare and dangerous smile that made Joy shiver. "You trust me, and you let me show you how to use that fire. First, you need to understand this world. It's a world where power is everything. But power doesn't come from wealth or status. It comes from knowing what you're capable of and using it to your advantage. If you're going to survive here, Joy, you need to stop hiding." For the first time, Joy believed him. She had spent so much of her life trying to shrink, trying to fit in, trying to hide the parts of herself that the world couldn't accept. But Kai was telling her something different. He was telling her to embrace the very things that had been used to hold her down. "I'm ready," she said, her voice stronger than she had ever heard it before. She didn't know where this would lead, but she was done running. She was done hiding. Kai stood and motioned for Yoon to approach. "Good. Now, it's time for you to start learning. Yoon will be your guide. He'll show you the ropes, help you understand how things work here. And when you're ready, we'll move forward." Joy nodded. She didn't know exactly what she was getting herself into, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel lost. She felt alive, ready to take on whatever came next. As Yoon led her down another hallway, Joy glanced back at Kai, who was watching her with an intensity that made her heart race. There was something about him, something that both scared and excited her. But at that moment, she didn't care about the dangers. She didn't care about the unknown. She was ready to stop hiding. And whatever came next, she would face it head-on. Joy's steps echoed as she followed Yoon deeper into the building. The walls, painted in muted grays, seemed to close in on her. The space felt like a labyrinth, cold, unwelcoming, but the tension in her chest, the fear that had gnawed at her since the moment she left the church, started to ebb away with each step. Kai's words lingered in her mind, "You've got a fire inside of you." She could almost feel it, flickering inside her like a spark. Yoon led her into another room, this one larger and more refined. A wide wooden table sat in the center, surrounded by a few chairs, but it wasn't the room that caught her attention, it was the people sitting around it. Several men and women, their faces hard and unreadable, sat in silence, observing her as she walked in. There was a chill in the air, the kind that came with power, the kind that told you these were people who weren't easily impressed. Yoon stopped in front of the table, motioning for Joy to sit. She hesitated for a moment, but then, remembering Kai's words, she straightened her back and took a seat. The others didn't greet her. They simply watched, eyes like lasers, as if trying to figure out who she was. One of the women, a tall figure with raven-black hair and sharp features, leaned forward. Her eyes were cold, calculating. "Kai's got a lot of confidence in you," she said, her voice smooth but firm. "Let's hope you don't disappoint him." Joy's pulse quickened at the challenge in her tone. She could feel the weight of the room on her shoulders, but instead of shrinking, something inside her stiffened. This was her chance to prove herself, to stop running. She squared her shoulders, meeting the woman's gaze. "I don't plan on disappointing him," Joy replied, her voice steady, surprising even herself. The words were simple, but they held weight, a promise that she wasn't backing down. The woman raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. She glanced over at Yoon, who nodded and gestured for Joy to follow him. The woman's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer, and Joy felt the weight of her judgment, but she refused to flinch. Yoon led her into a smaller room next door, a training area, it seemed. The floor was bare except for a few mats, and in the far corner, a punching bag hung from the ceiling. Yoon turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "This is where you'll learn to defend yourself," he said, his tone matter-of-fact. "In this world, weakness doesn't survive long. You need to learn how to fight, how to protect what's yours." Joy's heart beat faster. She had never been the type to get into fights, never had the need to defend herself physically. But she had been fighting her entire life against the world's prejudices, against the rejection she faced every day. This wasn't about learning to punch or kick. This was about learning how to stand her ground. "I'm ready," she said, her voice low but certain. Yoon nodded, as if satisfied with her response. "Good. We start with the basics. Follow my lead." He moved to the punching bag and demonstrated a series of basic strikes, his movements swift and controlled. Joy watched intently, trying to memorize each move. Then, he turned to her. "Your turn." Joy stepped up to the bag, feeling her heart race in her chest. Her fists clenched, and for a moment, she hesitated. Could she really do this? Could she transform into someone who didn't run when faced with pain? But then she remembered Jun-suk's words, the sting of them still fresh in her mind. "You're too dark." He had never seen her for who she truly was. He had never given her the chance to fight for herself. She exhaled sharply and threw a punch at the bag. It wasn't perfect, her aim was off, and the impact wasn't as strong as it should have been, but it felt good. It felt like she was finally starting to reclaim control. Yoon watched her, arms crossed, his face neutral. "You've got the right spirit," he said after a moment. "But you need to channel that anger. Every punch you throw should come from a place of power. Focus on what's inside of you, not just the surface." Joy nodded, wiping the sweat off her brow. The words hit her harder than any punch ever could. Focus on what's inside. That was the key. It wasn't just about strength or power. It was about understanding who she was and using that knowledge to fuel her every move. She took another deep breath, squared her stance, and threw another punch. This time, it was more controlled, more precise. She felt the sting in her knuckles as they connected with the bag, but there was something else too, a sense of purpose, a clarity she hadn't had before. Yoon nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Better. Now, keep going. You'll need to be faster, stronger, but more than that, you'll need to be unpredictable. People who think they can control you will always try to do so. Don't let them. Make them think you're someone they can't figure out." Joy nodded, her determination solidifying with every strike. She wasn't the woman she had been that morning, helpless, heartbroken, questioning everything about her worth. She was something else now. She was learning to fight for herself. As the hours passed, Yoon guided her through different techniques, how to move, how to strike, how to control her body in a way that felt alien but empowering. She had never pushed herself like this before, never let herself feel this level of focus and intensity. But now, it was all she could do to keep going, to keep learning. When they finally stopped, Joy's body ached, her muscles screaming from the exertion. But as she stood there, breathless and sweating, she felt stronger than she had ever felt in her life. She had taken control of her own fate, if only for a moment. Yoon handed her a bottle of water, and as she drank, he looked at her with a newfound respect. "You're not like the others," he said quietly. "You have something they don't." Joy met his gaze. "What's that?" "Real determination. You've got the kind of fire that can't be extinguished." Her heart thudded in her chest. He was right. For the first time in years, she felt like she was on the path to something real, something that could truly change her life. She wasn't just a victim of other people's standards anymore. She wasn't going to let anyone dictate her worth. As she wiped her face, a new sense of confidence surged through her. She had a long way to go, but for the first time, she was ready to face whatever came next. "Thanks," she said, her voice steady. "For everything." Yoon gave a slight nod, his gaze softening. "Just remember, Joy, this world isn't kind. But you've got the strength to make it your own. Don't let anyone tell you who you are again." Joy smiled, feeling the weight of his words sink in. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was ready. And no one was going to stop her. The days that followed were a blur of new experiences and harsh lessons. Joy's body ached constantly, every muscle screaming for rest, but she didn't stop. Every punch, every kick, every drop of sweat felt like a step away from the woman she had been and a step toward the woman she was becoming. Kai's words echoed in her mind as she trained relentlessly. "You've got a fire inside of you." She hadn't realized it until now, but he was right. That fire had always been there, buried deep inside her, smothered by years of self-doubt and the judgment of others. But now, with every strike, every lesson, she could feel it burning brighter. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Joy sat on the edge of a training mat, exhausted and out of breath. She wiped the sweat from her forehead, her legs shaking from the exertion. Yoon stood across the room, his arms folded, watching her with a knowing look. "You're improving," he said, his tone more approving than usual. "But this is just the beginning. You've learned to fight with your body, but now, you need to learn to fight with your mind." Joy looked up at him, her brows furrowed. "Fight with my mind?" Yoon nodded. "In this world, Joy, strength isn't just about physical ability. It's about knowing when to act, when to think, and when to use your power in the most strategic way. There's more to this life than just fighting. If you want to survive, you need to learn how to outthink everyone around you." Joy's heart raced at the thought. She had always prided herself on being quick on her feet, but she had never considered the mental side of the game. She had spent her entire life running from emotional battles, avoiding the harsh truths of her reality. But now, in this strange new world, she realized that the battle wasn't just physical, it was mental, emotional, psychological. "I'm ready," she said quietly, her voice filled with determination. Yoon smirked slightly, clearly pleased with her response. "We'll start with a strategy. I'll teach you how to read people, how to anticipate their moves, and how to control a room without lifting a finger." Over the next few weeks, Joy learned lessons that went beyond anything she had imagined. Yoon taught her how to observe, how to read the subtle shifts in people's body language, and how to detect lies in a single glance. At first, it was overwhelming. She was used to relying on instinct, not on calculation. But with Yoon's guidance, she started to understand the deeper game that was being played in the world she had entered. A game that wasn't won by strength alone. One evening, after a particularly intense lesson, Yoon led her into a private meeting room. Inside, Kai was waiting for her. He was seated at the head of a long table, his usual calm demeanor in place, but there was an intensity in his eyes that made Joy's heart race. "Joy," he said, his voice low but filled with purpose. "We've got work to do. Tonight, you'll be meeting with some of the most powerful players in this city. They've been watching you. They're curious about what you can do. And I want to see how you handle yourself in a room full of people who have no patience for weakness." Joy's pulse quickened. She had trained for this moment, but the reality of it was different. This wasn't just another lesson. This was the moment she would have to prove herself. Kai stood and motioned for her to follow him. They made their way to a lavishly decorated room at the end of a hallway, the air thick with anticipation. Joy's heart pounded in her chest as she entered the room. A dozen people were gathered around a large table, their faces unreadable. Men and women alike, all with the same air of calculated confidence. "This is it," Kai murmured, just loud enough for her to hear. "These are the people who run this city. Show them who you are." Joy nodded, her nerves steadied by his words. This was what she had been training for. This was the moment when she would prove she was more than just the woman rejected at the altar, more than just the girl who had been told she wasn't enough. She was strong, capable, and ready for whatever came next. As they entered the room, all eyes turned to her. The air seemed to thicken, the tension palpable. She could feel their gaze on her, sizing her up, judging her. But this time, she didn't flinch. This time, she stood tall, her posture strong, her face composed. She didn't need to hide anymore. Kai walked up to the table and exchanged brief pleasantries with a few of the people gathered. Then, with a small gesture, he motioned for Joy to join him at the front. She walked toward the table, her heart racing, but her steps were steady, confident. She didn't let the weight of their stares crush her. One man, a middle-aged figure with a sharp jawline and calculating eyes, spoke first. "So, this is the woman Kai's been so keen on," he said, his voice dripping with skepticism. "She looks ordinary." The words hit Joy like a slap, but she didn't react. Instead, she met the man's gaze, holding it for just a moment too long. He raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback by her confidence. "I'm not ordinary," Joy said, her voice steady, no hint of insecurity left in her words. "And I'll prove it." The room fell silent. Kai gave a small nod of approval, his eyes gleaming with pride. Joy knew the game had begun. They wanted to see her crack, to show weakness, to confirm that she was nothing more than a pretty face with no substance. But she wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. She didn't need to play by their rules. She was rewriting the game. As the meeting continued, Joy remained calm, listening carefully to the discussions around her, picking up on the subtle shifts in power, the quiet manipulations, the veiled threats. She could hear the unspoken words between the lines, could sense when someone was lying or trying to hide something. She had never felt so sharp, so in control. When the meeting concluded, the man who had spoken to her earlier gave her a cold, appraising look. "We'll see if you can live up to the hype," he said, his tone condescending. Joy didn't respond right away. Instead, she gave him a slight smile. "I always do." The man's eyes narrowed, and he nodded, as if acknowledging something in her that he hadn't expected. Joy felt the shift. The first test was over, and she had passed. As the room began to clear, Kai pulled her aside, his gaze intense. You did well, he said, a rare note of approval in his voice. But don't get too comfortable. This is just the beginning. Joy nodded, her chest swelling with pride. She wasn't just here to survive. She was here to thrive. And she was ready for whatever came next. The days that followed the meeting were a blur of strategy, observation, and careful maneuvering. Joy had stepped into a world that was far darker and more complex than anything she had ever known. But the fire that Kai had seen in her, that she hadn't known existed, had ignited completely. She spent her time observing, learning, and, most importantly, testing herself. The training had been brutal, but it was the mental exercises that kept her awake at night. Yoon had taught her how to read people, to understand their motives with a single glance. She could tell when someone was bluffing or hiding something, and she used that knowledge to her advantage. Kai's world was a game of power, manipulation, and survival. There were no rules, only the strong thrived. And Joy wasn't about to let herself be a victim of the game. She had spent too long being told she was too dark, too weak, too much of everything the world didn't want. But here, in this world, she had found a place where she could be herself, where her strength was respected. One evening, after another intense training session with Yoon, Kai approached her in the hallway. The silence between them was comfortable, almost familiar now, but Joy couldn't shake the feeling that he was always watching her, studying her, even when he wasn't looking directly at her. You've done well, he said, his voice low. You've learned faster than I expected. Joy didn't respond immediately. She wasn't used to receiving praise, and part of her still found it strange to believe. But the truth was, she had worked harder than she ever thought possible. There was something about this life, about what Kai was offering, that pushed her to be better. She was fighting for more than just survival. She was fighting for herself. Thank you, she said, her voice steady, her gaze meeting him. But I'm not done yet. Kai's lips curled into a small, approving smile. No. You're far from done. But you're on the right track. For a moment, there was an intensity in his gaze that made her pulse race. He wasn't just speaking to her as a mentor. There was something else in the way he looked at her, a recognition. As if he saw something in her that no one else had ever seen. What's next? She asked, her voice filled with quiet determination. Kai's smile faded, and his expression became more serious. Next, you need to meet some of the people who run things in this city. They've been keeping an eye on you. And they want to see how far you've come. Joy's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for this moment, but now that it was here, she felt the weight of what it meant. These were the people who controlled everything, the power brokers, the ones who pulled the strings in the shadows. The meeting would test everything she had learned. Are you ready? Kai asked, his voice soft but laced with an undeniable edge of challenge. Joy took a deep breath. The path she was on had no guarantees, no promises of safety. But for the first time in her life, she didn't care. She wasn't looking for safety. She was looking for something more, something that would prove to herself, and to the world, that she was more than the girl who had been rejected at the altar. I'm ready, she said firmly. Kai nodded, his eyes flickering with something unreadable. He led her to a sleek black car parked in front of the building. As they drove through the city, Joy's mind raced. She had no idea what to expect from this meeting, but she knew one thing for sure, it would change everything. They arrived at a tall, imposing building, the lights of the city reflecting off its glass windows. This was no ordinary building, it was the heart of the city's power, a place where deals were made, lives were decided, and people like her were either crushed or made. Inside, the atmosphere was cold and clinical. The walls were adorned with abstract art, the floors polished to a shine, and the air smelled faintly of expensive cologne. Joy followed Kai through the lobby, her heart pounding in her chest. At the end of the hallway, a large door opened into a private meeting room. Inside, several figures sat around a large table, their faces hard, their eyes sharp. They were older, powerful, and they looked at her like she was a puzzle to be solved. Kai motioned for her to sit at the head of the table, his eyes locking onto hers for a moment before he took his own seat. Joy sat down, trying to keep her composure, but the weight of their gaze was suffocating. These people were used to control, to manipulate, to bend others to their will. And they were now sizing her up. The man at the head of the table, a tall, imposing figure with graying hair and a cold, calculating gaze, spoke first. "Kai's been vouching for you, Joy. He says you've got potential. But we're not in the business of trusting words. We want to see if you're really as good as he claims." Joy didn't flinch. She had been preparing for this moment since she first stepped into Kai's world. These people didn't care about her past. They only cared about what she could offer them now. And she had something to prove. "I'm here to show you who I am," she said, her voice steady. "I'm not here to make promises. I'm here to deliver." There was a long silence as the group exchanged glances. The man at the head of the table leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. "You're confident. I'll give you that." He glanced at the others, then back at her. "What makes you think you can handle the kind of power we deal with?" Joy took a deep breath, steadying herself. This wasn't about arrogance. This was about showing them that she belonged here. "Because I've been fighting my whole life," she said. "And I'm not afraid to keep fighting. I've already seen what happens when you let people decide your worth. I'm not going to let that happen again. Not here, and not with you." There was a flicker of something in the man's eyes, respect, perhaps. But he didn't show it. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping the surface of the table. "You'll need more than words to survive here," he said, his voice a low growl. "We'll see how you handle yourself when the stakes are higher." Joy's heart raced, but she held his gaze, not backing down. "I've already faced the worst. I'm not afraid of you." The man smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "We'll see." With that, the meeting was over. As Joy stood, her legs felt like jelly beneath her, but she was proud. She had stood her ground. She had proven that she wasn't the scared woman who had run out of the church. She was someone who had found her strength. Kai was waiting for her outside the door, his expression unreadable. He gave her a small nod as she approached. "You did well," he said quietly. "But this is just the beginning." Joy nodded, her chest swelling with pride. She wasn't done yet. She was just getting started. The days that followed the meeting with the power brokers were filled with a mix of tension and anticipation. Joy's confidence had grown, but the world she had stepped into was full of shadows, and each day felt like a test of whether she could survive in it. The weight of the decisions she had made, the world she had chosen to enter, was beginning to settle in. There was no turning back now. Kai had been watching her more closely, his gaze always heavy with expectation. Every word she spoke, every move she made seemed to be under his scrutiny. But there was something else in the way he watched her, something like pride. He had always believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. But it wasn't just Kai she had to prove herself to. She had already faced judgment from the men and women who ran the city. They wanted to see her fail, wanted to find a reason to dismiss her, to show her that she was nothing more than a product of Kai's influence. But with every test, every challenge, Joy felt herself growing stronger, more capable. She wasn't backing down. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the skyline, casting long shadows over the city, Joy found herself once again in the training room. The sound of punching bags hitting the floor echoed in the air as she worked, her movements sharp, precise, almost calculated now. She was no longer just throwing punches. She was thinking, calculating, moving with intention. Kai stepped into the room, his presence immediately commanding her attention. He had been quiet lately, observing from the shadows, but today, something in his demeanor told Joy that this would be a different kind of lesson. "Enough," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. Joy paused, her chest heaving with exertion, and turned to face him. Her muscles were sore, every inch of her body screaming for rest, but she stood tall, waiting for whatever challenge he was about to throw her way. "You've been training hard," Kai said, his voice softer now. "But this isn't just about physical strength. This is about control. And you're still holding back." Joy raised an eyebrow, confused. She had been pushing herself harder than ever. What did he mean she was holding back? "You're still afraid of something," Kai continued, his gaze never leaving her. "You're afraid of embracing the full extent of your power. You're still running from your own strength." Her heart skipped a beat. She had heard him say something similar before, but now, it was different. Now, it felt like he was speaking directly to her, to the part of her that had been afraid to show the world who she really was. "I'm not afraid," she said, her voice steady but with a hint of uncertainty. Kai took a step forward, closing the distance between them. "Then prove it." His words hung in the air between them, heavy with challenge. Joy's breath caught in her throat. This was more than just a physical test. This was a test of her will, her resolve, her very identity. Kai had always seen something in her, something that she had never seen in herself. But now, standing face to face with him, she realized that it wasn't just about proving herself to him or anyone else. It was about proving it to herself. She had spent her whole life running from the very things that made her powerful, her identity, her strength, her resilience. She wasn't going to run anymore. "I'm not afraid of you," Joy said, her voice stronger this time. "And I'm not afraid of who I am." Kai's lips curled into a small smile, a look of approval in his eyes. "Good. Now show me." Without warning, he moved, fast, like a blur of motion, and before she could react, he grabbed her wrist, pulling her toward him. Joy stumbled but quickly regained her footing, her instincts kicking in. This wasn't a fight. This was a lesson. "Control, Joy," Kai said, his grip firm but not painful. "This isn't just about force. It's about knowing when to act, when to wait, when to anticipate your opponent's next move." She pulled against him, testing his grip, but instead of brute strength, she focused on the subtle shift in his posture. He wasn't holding her the way someone would in a struggle. He was giving her an opening. Joy shifted her weight, twisting her body in a way that Kai hadn't expected, and in one fluid motion, she broke free of his grasp. It wasn't a perfect move, but it was enough. Enough to show him that she was learning. Kai stepped back, his eyes gleaming with approval. "Good," he said, nodding. "You're learning to trust yourself. To trust your instincts." Joy caught her breath, still reeling from the speed and intensity of the moment. But there was something else inside her, a feeling of exhilaration. She had done it. She had taken control, used the opening she had been given, and turned the situation to her advantage. This wasn't just physical strength. This was mental, emotional. This was about knowing when to push and when to let go. Kai's expression softened, and for the first time, Joy saw something else in him, pride, not just in her ability, but in her growth. "You're ready," he said quietly. "You've learned more than I expected in such a short time." Joy stood still, absorbing his words. "Ready for what?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Kai's eyes darkened, the weight of his words pressing down on her. "There's a meeting tonight. A new opportunity. You're going to be introduced to the people who want to see if you're more than just a pawn in this game. They'll test you. And this time, it's not just about proving yourself to me. It's about proving yourself to them. To everyone who's ever doubted you." Joy's stomach fluttered with nervous energy. But beneath it all, she felt the familiar spark of determination. This was it. The moment where everything she had been training for would come to fruition. She was done being anyone's pawn. She was going to show them all who she was. "I'm ready," she said, her voice unwavering. Kai studied her for a moment, as if measuring her resolve. "I know you are," he replied. "But remember, Joy, this world doesn't give you second chances. Make this one count." The night of the meeting arrived faster than Joy expected. The weight of what was about to happen pressed down on her like a physical force, but she was determined not to let it crush her. She had trained, she had learned, and now she was ready to prove that she was more than just a pawn in a game she hadn't chosen. Tonight, she would take control of her fate. Kai had been unusually quiet all day, his usual confidence tempered with a tension she could feel radiating from him. There was something different about tonight, something that had him on edge. "Are you ready?" he asked as they stood outside the meeting room, the door looming ahead like a portal to the unknown. Joy didn't hesitate. "I'm ready." Kai studied her for a moment, his eyes searching her face, as if looking for any trace of doubt or fear. Finding none, he nodded, his face softening slightly. "Good. Keep your head clear, stay focused, and remember what you've learned. This is the moment. Show them who you are." With that, he opened the door, and they stepped inside. The room was large, grand even, with a long table surrounded by a circle of powerful individuals. They all turned their heads to look at her, their expressions unreadable, their eyes calculating. They had heard about her, they had watched her, and now they were ready to test her. Joy's heart pounded, but she didn't let it show. She had trained for this. She had spent weeks preparing herself for this moment, mentally, physically, and emotionally. She wasn't going to let these people see any weakness. Kai took his place at the head of the table, and Joy stood beside him, her posture straight, her expression composed. The man at the far end of the table, an older figure with silver hair and a scar above his left eyebrow, was the first to speak. His voice was deep, authoritative. "So, this is the woman who's been causing such a stir," he said, his tone measured. "Joy, is it?" Joy nodded, her gaze steady. "Yes, sir." The man's eyes flicked to Kai, and then back to her. "Kai's been vouching for you. That's no small thing. But words don't mean much in our world. We'll see if you're worth the hype." He motioned to one of the men seated at the table. The man stood and moved toward Joy, his movements deliberate and slow, as if to test her response. Joy didn't flinch. She stood her ground, meeting his gaze head-on. The man reached out as though to grab her arm, but in one swift motion, Joy sidestepped him, her body moving with a fluidity that surprised even her. She grabbed his wrist, twisting it slightly to the side, just enough to make him aware that she could have done more if she wanted to. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on her. The man, a burly figure with a buzz cut, looked at her with narrowed eyes, then slowly nodded in approval. "Impressive," he muttered. Joy didn't let her guard down. She had learned that in this world, every move, every gesture, could be an opportunity or a trap. She had to be smart. The older man at the end of the table, who had been watching the exchange closely, finally spoke again. "You've got spirit, I'll give you that. But we don't just want spirit. We want results. If you're going to run with us, you need to prove you can handle more than just physical challenges. This isn't a world for the faint of heart." Joy felt a wave of heat surge through her. Results. That word hung in the air like a challenge she couldn't ignore. "I'm not faint-hearted," she said, her voice steady, her gaze unwavering. "I've been tested my whole life. And I'm still standing." The man's lips curled into a faint smile. "We'll see about that." Without warning, the lights in the room dimmed, and a large screen at the far wall flickered to life. A video began to play, a recording of a deal, a power struggle, people being moved like pawns on a chessboard. Joy recognized some of the people in the video, figures who operated in the shadows of this city, figures who controlled its pulse from behind closed doors. The video was a reminder of the stakes. It was real, raw, and dangerous. Joy's stomach tightened as she watched the negotiations unfold, each player taking risks, making moves, and calculating how much they were willing to sacrifice to gain power. When the video ended, the room was silent. Joy could feel the weight of their gazes on her, each of them sizing her up, wondering if she was truly capable of handling the dirty, dangerous world they inhabited. "I'm not interested in words," the man at the end of the table said. "I want to know if you can act when it matters. Tonight, we're making a decision. Whether you're in or out." Joy's pulse quickened. This was the moment. The moment that would decide everything. Kai's voice broke through the tension. "She's ready," he said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "Let's give her the test." The older man raised an eyebrow. "Test?" Kai nodded. "A simple one. We'll see if she can handle the pressure. If she can think on her feet." The man at the head of the table glanced around the room. "Very well. The test is simple. You'll be given a choice. A decision that will have consequences. You'll decide what happens next." Joy nodded, her mind already racing. She had faced decisions before, tough ones, painful ones, but this one felt different. This wasn't just about her. This was about proving herself in a world that thrived on power plays, where every action was a step toward dominance or destruction. Kai stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "We're giving you an opportunity to show us what you're made of," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "But remember, this world doesn't give second chances. Once you make a choice, there's no going back." Joy nodded, feeling the weight of the moment settle on her. This was it. The decision she made tonight would shape her future, define her place in this world. Her mind raced. She had already come this far. She had learned to fight, to think, to survive. But now, she had to prove she could thrive. With a deep breath, she straightened her back and met the eyes of everyone in the room. "I'm ready. Let's see what you've got." The silence that followed felt like an eternity, but Joy knew this was just the beginning. Whatever came next, she was prepared to face it head on. There was no turning back now.